Hello, welcome to another Burgundy with Tweedy video. This is almost certainly too young, isn't it? This is the 2022 Nuits from Confuron Gindre, one of those wines I bought from Costco. I really ought to have just left this, but as I've probably complained before, it's so much effort buying wines. Finding interesting new different wines, finding new producers, dealing with deliveries, all of that stuff. So it's an excuse for the fact that I'm going to consume this far too young, almost certainly. 2022, so it will have had a bit less than 3 years from when these grapes came off the vines. That Bourgogne Rouge of the same vintage, same producer the other day, did surprisingly well, I thought. The 2021 of this same wine was, of all of the ones from that case of Confuron Gindre so far, not the best, I would say. That was probably my least favourite. It was okay, but you know. So I don't really have high hopes for this. As I say, almost certainly too young, and its predecessor didn't seem to quite be ready yet either. It does sometimes happen that a newer vintage can be ready earlier. To give this a fighting chance, I've got one of my biggest glasses. I don't like big wine glasses. I occasionally get comments saying, why aren't you using a Burgundy glass or whatever? I tend to prefer sort of things that would classically be considered more like white wine glasses for everything. I prefer smaller glasses, but as long as you've got that tulip shape funneling the aromas in, I think it works pretty well. Anyway, that's what we have. Nice ruby colour, a nice bit of a sheen on that, nicely translucent. It looks good. I like the colour of it and everything. It doesn't seem like a bad start prior to giving this a nose. No swirling yet. And that is a not unpleasant aroma of, I think I'm getting more berry fruit, red berry fruit, possibly a little bit of blackberry fruit. But there is a sort of seriousness to it. We're not talking a sort of faint whiff of strawberries and raspberries. Something a little bit more intense. Perhaps it is a little bit sort of blackberry, a little bit brambly. Let's give it a swirl and see what happens. That's more berry fruit again. This seems to be less cherry, more berry. But that's pretty nice actually. I like that fruity character. It's nice and fresh, but it's also got a hint of richness to it. There's possibly something else going on beyond the fruit there as well. Something giving it a backdrop of sort of seriousness. I don't quite know how to put that into more meaningful words. This could be very soft hints of some of those things that often go hand in hand with fruit character, the sort of tobacco-y, slightly woody notes. But it's very soft. Maybe it's a tiny hint of sort of dried fruit, I don't know. Nice though, I like that nose. Let's give it a sip. You know what, that is all right. It's kind of soft. I don't think the fruit character on the palate is quite as rich and intense as the nose suggests it might be, but it's quite pleasant. There's a very delicate, I suppose, papery, balsa wood-esque tannin there. Very, very soft kind of tannic / woody edge to that. The fruit character is, again, I suppose a bit of blackberry, a bit of, I don't know, tayberry. I only vaguely recall what they taste like. That sort of thing. And quite nice. And there is a little bit of, I suppose, spice and or tobacco towards the finish there. That's actually pretty good though. I think, if I recall correctly, I wasn't so immediately enjoying the 2021 of the Nuits from Confuron Gindre, whereas this is actually pretty good on the first couple of sips. I mean, it still obviously is probably far too young to be drinking village level Burgundy. I'm sure this would develop in all sorts of interesting ways if I had the patience to leave this for another couple of years, but I don't. Okay, let's all just accept that fact. But that is actually pretty drinkable as it is for something just under 3 years old. It's nicely balanced. It's got those interesting extra notes around the edge and some quite pleasant fruit character. So I'm happy with that. If I recall correctly, the price on this was slightly lower than the 2021. And overall, I thought the 2021 didn't really deliver great value for money when it was priced at the same level as the Vosne Romanée of that vintage. I put the price on screen for this, but I think this was comparatively slightly cheaper, and I think overall that is drinking better despite its youth than the 2021 was. And if you're just looking for pure value for money, I would say go for the Bourgogne Rouge from this vintage, which was still less than half the price of this, I believe, and that was surprisingly drinkable, I thought. But this does have some hints of something that's going to become a bit more powerful, a bit more intense, possibly. Quite happy with that. Not bad at all. Don't regret opening it. That'll be good with Sunday dinner. Cheers.